Chapter 5. Soul Binding. Ayami wanted my statement. The wand wanted my soul. We stood in the vacant lot where my house wasn't. The dirt under my boots remembered pipes and cheap tile and the couch that had broken before I did. The chalk ghost of a body lay where my Mundanian spine had met bureau chalk. The wand at my hip hummed like an old fridge. That soft, insistent vibration that said, "I am working. You will not like what happens if I stop." Kali sat just ahead of us, perfectly centered on the half-erased outline, tail wrapped around her paws. Gold eyes on me. "Talk," she said again. "Then we see." I took a breath by hand. Ayami's pen hovered over the ledger like a scalpel waiting for the first cut. "My last night," I said. "The mundane one. Retirement Eve." The overlay came in gentle at first. The weeds blurred at the edges. The river smell folded in on itself until it became dish soap and old coffee instead. "I was on the couch," I went on. "Same place this chalk has decided is my favorite spot to collapse. List with promises on the table. Flight searches in a tab I never submitted." I could feel the couch reassert itself under my boots, the sag in the middle, the spring that had outlived its warranty and its maker both. For a second, my weight shifted like I'd actually sat down. "Kali was there," I said. "The other Kali, or the same. Her fur had been warm against my ribs. Her purr had been irregular. Mundane cats don't count your breath for you. They assume you'll manage." Ayami's pen scratched. Couch/Mundanian night. Cat present. 10:53 p.m., I said, throat catching on the precision. "Clock in the kitchen." I remember because I thought, if I sleep now, I can catch the 8 a.m. train and pretend it's a spontaneous decision. Overhead, Etherreek's mana nodes blinked blue. In my head, the old kitchen clock ticked and glowed a tired red 10:53. "I listened to the house," I said. Tick of the clock, pipes settling, Kaylee breathing. I matched her, long in, long out. Thought about tomorrow. The air in the lot thickened around me. The wand's hum climbed half a step. Kaylee's paw tapped my boot once. "Careful." "I thought," I said, "tomorrow I'll look up flights. Tomorrow I'll buy something one way. Tomorrow I—" The memory broke there, the way it had from the coffin. Darkness taking me in one smooth, merciful sweep. No pain, no warning. Just a soft hand over the world. Only this time, I didn't stop at the dark. The wand reached up my spine and yanked. The lot dropped away. My knees went with it. I heard Ayami swear as I fell, but the sound smeared into the distance, like a conversation happening at the end of a long corridor. For a heartbeat, or whatever I was using instead, I wasn't in my body at all. I was between. The dark around me didn't vanish. It rewound. The lot under my knees thickened and changed its mind. One blink ago it had been weeds, broken bottles, and the chalk outline that said I had once been a respectable piece of evidence. Now it was tamped gravel, neat as an intake form. No chalk, no outline. Same rectangle of ground, different line item in time. 3 people stood where my corpse had been. A man in a bureau coat, a woman wearing a crown made of offended shrubbery, and a third in a long, dark coat with my shoulders. Professor Jack. Alive. Breathing like it was still in his job description. Street lamps along the road kept a polite distance, throwing their light at the city proper and letting only the tired leftovers slink into the lot. A crescent moon hung over the river, more present and accounted for than useful illumination. The kind of night that encourages bad decisions and hides the paperwork afterward. Em stood in the middle, dressed in moss and fabric that had strong opinions about courts. In the spill of half-hearted light, her crown looked like twig antlers. shadows branching up the warehouse wall behind her like she'd brought her own forest. Ishimori hovered half a step behind, clinging to a ledger folder, collar buttoned all the way up as if bureau protocol could be used as insulation against reality. The other me had his back to the trees, hands bare. No wand. No focus. Nothing between him and what was coming but a coat and his terrible habit of volunteering. At the far edge of the lot, where scrub blurred into tree line, the dark made a small adjustment. A smudge of shadow stepped wrong. A twig snapped, loud the way sound gets when darkness is listening for an excuse. M's head tilted, already annoyed. "You're late," she said, voice soft and edged like a letter opener. The trees produced a shape. Cloak, hood, the standard uniform for people who prefer not to exist in witness statements. They walked toward the little cluster, toward us, with that unhurried, confident gait of someone who assumes the scene has already been assigned their name. Light bloomed in their hand. Not fire, wand light, narrow and disciplined. The kind of, "See, I'm not starting anything yet," glow you bring to formal meetings so nobody can claim you jumped the gun. The beam drew a pale circle on the ground as they approached, catching glints, the prickle edge of M's crown, the flash on Ishimori's spectacles, the clean line of my other jaw, and the wand in that hand tugged at me. Slim length of silver thorn and black glass. Muzzle tipped with the suggestion of an emberstone wafer. My focus. Not mine yet, but my bones knew the silhouette the way you recognize your own signature even if someone else is holding the pen. They stopped at conversational distance. Ishimori cleared his throat, the ledger folder adjusting in his grip like it had fantasies of being a shield. "Thank you for agreeing to," he began. The cloaked figure didn't bother to answer. The wand light snapped off, and we dropped back into the moon and street lamp version of dark. For half a breath, everything held. River hush in the distance. A dog somewhere deciding to be offended on principle. M exhaled through her nose, unimpressed. Then the wand came back up, and it had changed its mind about what kind of light it wanted to carry. A line of killing-grade spell work knifed out, bright, thin, absolutely sure of itself. It wrote M's name in the air in a script older than most of the laws pretending to govern this city. M's weight shifted. Ishimori's heels dug into the gravel. Nobody had time to escalate to proper fear. Professor Me moved. He didn't lunge so much as refile himself. Half step, half fall into the space between M and the oncoming curse, with the crisp inevitability of a man who's read all the columns and knows exactly which one his name belongs in. No hesitation, no flourish. Just a body interposed where the math said there shouldn't be one. I felt the decision slam down the line between us. Shock running both ways. On the mundane couch, retired Jack twitched in his sleep. In the lot, Professor Jack threw his chest and his empty hands into the curse's path. The curse obliged. It hit him dead center. The whole world slowed to audit speed. The wand in the attacker's hand flared. Not at the tip, but along its spine. Light crawled down the length into their grip, then kinked sideways, like the focus had just remembered it had opinions about ownership. Sigils woke along the metal, each one a little law rubbing the sleep out of its eyes. One for the directive seat, one for the life thread, one for that nasty corner clause about substitutes who step willingly into the line of fire. The oath core woke like a predator catching the scent of a loophole. And the curse, built for a clean route from caster to target to ledger, realized, just a fraction too late, that something else had started doing the accounting. I didn't see numbers. I saw doors. On one side, the retired life. Bus windows, good coffee, quiet promises, a body clocking out like a bulb at the end of a shift. On the other, the professor, bureau names, Fey courts, blood on stone, a body already starting its backwards fall toward a ground that would not be forgiving about it. My soul, if we're using the legacy terminology, hung between the two like a form nobody had quite finished filing. The wand spoke first. Not in words, in the hungry logic of a device built to weigh vows and then keep them whether you like it or not. This one, it decided, feeling along my thread. Jack Vale. Present. Stubborn enough to step in front of curses. Knows how to hold an oath. Mine. Professor Jack's body was already falling. Mundane Jack's had already gone out. The curse had done its job. Somewhere a very old law nodded once and checked a box. The focus did not agree that the matter was closed. It grabbed. I felt the yank from both ends. Retired me hauled up out of his own chest. Professor me slammed back down into a frame that should already have been vacant. The two bodies overlapped for less than a blink, but in that blink I saw everything. Kaylee, asleep against my Mundanian ribs, blissfully unaware. M's eyes going wide as Professor Me stepped in front of her, completely aware. The curse finished the old-fashioned way. Professor Me's body spasmed once as killing-grade power finished cashing out through heart and spine. He hit the gravel hard, coat flaring, limbs folding in that ugly, boneless way the living never quite manage. For a breath, the lot went utterly still. Then the wand in the assassin's hand started to scream. Not out loud, not in any way a patrol log would accept as noise, but light boiled along the silverthorn like overpressured steam. The emberstone at the hilt went from polite amber to white-hot, a tiny sun that had outgrown its job description. I felt it in my teeth. Heat that wasn't looking for air. It was looking for a tether. It was the exact moment I understood the focus had decided it knew who was allowed to cut my lifeline, and this caster wasn't it. The assassin's gloved fingers spasmed. Even through leather, that kind of heat gets a vote. They swore. Something short and vicious in a language with more consonants than mercy, and tried to hold on. The wand objected. The glow knifed down into their grip. Smoke snapped off scorched leather. For a horrible half-second they nearly wrestled it back into compliance, and then the emberstone's light flared hard enough to resign from its old post. They let go. The focus dropped an inch, then thought better of gravity. It hung there in the dark, hovering, still wrapped in the afterimage of its own light, metal and wood humming with stolen heat. Steam, or something like it, ghosted off the emberstone, which went from white-hot to a deep, sulking black, like a coal that had made a private decision. The assassin backed up a step, breathing hard, staring at the wand like it had grown teeth. "Fine," they snapped. "Keep your pet." They turned and bolted for the trees, cloak snapping behind them. No parting curse, no dramatic attempt to reclaim the weapon. Just a brisk, practical retreat from an artifact that had stopped behaving like equipment. The focus stayed where it was for one more heartbeat, as if making sure the threat was actually leaving. Then it moved. Not a fall. A lean. It tipped in midair, muzzle turning away from the assassin's retreating back and toward the patch of gravel where my body lay cooling. Slowly, obscenely gentle given the circumstances, it drifted down until the cracked black glass hovered over my sternum. Light licked out. A thin, testing arc that slid through coat and bone like the intervening physics were a polite suggestion. Somewhere, in two different timelines, both bodies twitched. Mundane couch body, professor body, dragged together on a new line as the wand burned the emberstone's severing heat into a different kind of weld. Around us, the crescent moon went on, pretending it was just decorative. The city kept breathing. A siren started up somewhere, late to its own story and heading to the wrong chapter. Here, in the dark little rectangle of ground that would later host my chalk outline, the focus finished choosing. It let the last of the emberstone's severing fire gutter out. Then, very quietly, It settled at my fingertips, as lifeless and innocent-looking as the corpse it had just helped refile. Then, the coffin satin, the chalk, the green candles, waking to find the focus already at my hip, humming 2 names, mine and one that tasted of moss. And over all of it, that single cold decision from the wand. You are not finished. Get up! The overlay snapped. I slammed back into my knees in the lot, hands dug into damp dirt. The world came in on delay. Ayami's boots in my peripheral vision, ledger dumped somewhere safe, her hand hovering above my shoulder like she couldn't decide whether to touch or not. Kaylee was a hot bar of fur along my spine. Claws sunk through the coat into my shirt, anchoring. My chest heaved without the expected outcome. No breath, no burn, just the memory of both. "Mr. Vale," Ayami said. Her voice was sharper than usual. "Status. Now." I swallowed. My throat believed in saliva as a concept. That felt like progress. "Present," I managed. Annoyingly so. Kaylee's head pressed against the back of my neck. "In," she said. "4." I obeyed. The breath came ragged but serviceable. 4 in, 4 out. The wand's hum, which had spiked to a screaming whine only I could hear, downshifted to something like a steady, guilty purr. Ayami crouched into my eyeline. Her hair had escaped its knot. One red strand clung to her cheek as if it had opinions about gravity. "What did you see?" she asked. Not "are you all right?" Not what just happened. Straight to evidence. Jarringly comforting. I let out the rest of the breath and stared at the half-erased chalk outline under Kaylee. "Both," I said. "I died both ways. Couch and stone, the wand. Chose." Her pen was already in her hand. Ledger open, blank line ready. "Clarify chose," she said. I looked up at her, at the hill, at the ghost of my mundane house overlaying the lot, at the city beyond, running on ley lines and bad decisions. "It saw 2 Jack Vales on the ledger," I said. "One retiring, one stepping in front of a curse. It needed 1 death for the law and 1 body for the vow." My hand found the focus at my hip. The metal was warm now, like it had been caught listening. "So it split the difference." Kaylee's tail flicked, satisfied. "Good," she said. "Now you remember what it did." Ayami's pen scratched across the page. "Soul transfer, retired Jack. Professor Body. Routed via Oath Core during killing curse. Focus acted with intent." She underlined the last 3 words, hard enough I heard the paper complain. "Congratulations, Mr. Vale," she said quietly. "Your death just became premeditated. By an artifact." "Good to know someone had a plan," I said. My voice shook once and settled. I certainly didn't. The wand hummed once, a small, unapologetic chord. I didn't forgive it, not yet, but I understood it. The understanding settled in my chest like bad coffee, warm, bitter, not what I ordered. The focus lay quiet for all of 3 heartbeats. Then it pulsed, not loud. Just a low metallic thunk against my ribs, like someone rapped a knuckle on a tank and listened for the echo. Every hair on my arm stood up and tried to resign. "Well now," a voice drawled from the edge of the lot, "that there is an interesting sound to be making in public." I turned. A man leaned against the stump of an old lamp-post like he'd grown there. Coat, hat, boots, the whole frontier act, except the city seemed to accept him the way it accepted rust and old laws. His eyes took us in slow. Ayami, Kaylee, then the point under my coat where the focus sat pretending to be harmless. He tipped his hat a fraction. "Name's Jedediah Calloway. Folks that care about such things call me Jed." Ayami's ledger snapped shut. This is an active bureau reconstruction. You are not on the access list. Jed smiled the way a man does when someone quotes a rule he's outlived. Ma'am, with respect, your access list is about 10 minutes behind your problems. That wand of his just lit up the bureau's hounds like you rang the dinner bell. The focus gave a guilty little buzz, like it agreed. How long do we have? I asked. Jed's gaze held mine, steady and faintly sympathetic. Long enough to walk out of here like you meant to leave, he said. Not long enough to argue whose fault it is.